Hey guys, alright? Welcome everyone. In an empty local theater at night, in the state of Massachusetts, a 12-year-old girl named Abigail is quietly practicing her ballet dance. Meanwhile, outside, Joey is waiting for something when she is soon called by someone in a car, where we see she is armed. In the car are two men, Frank in the passenger seat and Peter at the wheel. As Abigail continues to practice her gentle ballet steps in a van, we see three more members of Joey's group in the car. Sammy, a hacker expert in invasions, Rickles, an experienced sniper, and Dean, the getaway driver of the van. Rickles puts on his beanie and a cloth to cover part of his face, then goes out with his rifle, climbing and positioning himself on a rooftop. He aims at the garden of a mansion while his colleagues in the van are clearly anxious about something. After Abigail finishes her rehearsal, she leaves the place and it is soon revealed that it was placed by Joey's group, who receive an alert that the car is already in motion. They then put on their beanies and masks to avoid being recognized. Sammy and Dean still wait in the van when they soon see their accomplice's car arriving. Sammy at this moment gains total access to the mansion's security system, allowing Joey, Frank, and Peter to enter the house gate smoothly. Sammy opens up and releases access for his accomplices to advance inside the location until they reach a child's room. At this moment, Abigail's car arrives and also enters the mansion. The group inside the room is alerted to this, and upon discovering it's a little girl they have to kidnap, Joey shows indignation, saying they didn't tell her it was a child. Frank soon contradicts her, saying if she wanted to quit and leave, she could do it now. Joey sees no other choice but to continue, and they all then hide behind the furniture in the room. Abigail arrives home and goes straight to her room, receiving a call from her father, where we understand she is alone at home at that moment. After hanging up the phone, the kidnappers spring into action, with Frank holding Abigail on the bed. But then the girl stabs his hand with a pencil, and that's when the other members spring into action, with Joey preventing Frank from trying to harm her for stabbing him in the hand. Joey sedates Abigail, and at that moment, Sammy outside warns the group inside the house that the girl's father is arriving. The criminals hurry and put Abigail in a large bag. From the roof, Rickles warns that they only have about 10 seconds before the father enters the house. But Frank claims they can be out in 9. As they are leaving, they hear Abigail's father calling her, and when they are already outside near the exit, an alarm goes off in the house. The group then runs, and Sammy manages to open the gate at the same time they stop the van in front. After everyone gets in, they hastily leave the scene. Joey checks if Abigail is okay, and seeing that she is, they then blindfold her. After stopping a little behind next to a truck to avoid being caught by surveillance cameras, Dean asks Sammy's name, but Frank quickly interrupts, reminding him of the rule of never knowing the names of their accomplices. They speed up because the plan is to take the girl to another isolated mansion in a remote location in the middle of a forest. Upon arriving at the location, the mastermind behind the whole operation, called Lambert, receives them, and after they put Abigail in a room, Lambert provides all the remaining information. He says this is only a 24-hour job, and the hard part is already over, now they just have to babysit the girl in that mansion. He says only Joey will stay close to the girl to watch her, and while the rest can make themselves at home. Joey asks who Abigail's father is, but Lambert only says he is a very rich man who is about to become $50 million poorer, which is the ransom price for the girl. Lambert assures everyone they are safe there but needs to take everyone's cell phone to avoid the risk of being tracked. After taking all the cell phones, Lambert gives some final instructions and with an ironic smile bids farewell, calling them rats, leaving everyone without understanding why. After settling in and participating in a session of revealing characteristics of each one by Joey, who proves to be quite insightful in observing each individual's behavior, Frank says she must be a recovering addict, also pointing out some characteristics to believe in that, leaving her with no way to deny. After this bonding between the members, Joey goes to the room where Abigail is and sees that the girl has already woken up. Abigail appears frightened and asks Joey to remove her blindfold because it's tight. Joey then puts on her mask covering her mouth and nose, then removes the blindfold from the girl. Feeling sorry for Abigail, Joey unlocks the handcuffs and puts them in front of her to make her more comfortable. Abigail cries and asks if they're going to hurt her, but Joey assures her that no one will, that if she behaves and her father gives the requested money, everything will be fine. Joey guarantees this by making a pinky promise, affirming that no one will hurt her. Abigail discovers that Joey is a mother to a boy almost her age and also learns her name. After talking a bit more and the girl stating that her father doesn't care about her, Joey says she's going out but will be back soon. However, before she leaves, Abigail stops her and strangely says she's sorry for what's going to happen to her. Joey goes downstairs to where the others are and asks Frank if he knows who Abigail's father is because she says the girl made it clear that her father is someone dangerous, finding it strange what the girl said before leaving the room to get scared, but when she does, she pays more attention to things. Frank then goes unnoticed to the room where Abigail is and forces her to say who her father is. She says the name, which surprises Frank. Frank rushes downstairs and grabbing his things, tells everyone he's leaving and they can have his share, saying he's out of it. Joey and the others follow him to the door, wanting to know why such a sudden decision. He then says they're all lost because the girl is none other than Christoph Laser's daughter. Dean, however, says he's just an urban legend, but Frank asserts that it's not about that but someone very real and active in the criminal world, someone akin to the Antichrist himself. After discussing a bit about the mess they're probably getting into, Frank decides to stay and continue the action because he believes in Lambert. So, everyone must be as alert as possible that night to notice any movement, distributing what each one should do. While Rickles settles with his rifle upstairs to keep watch, Joey patrols the house. She hears a strange noise coming from the back of a corridor, discovering it's a large room with several books, and the noise comes from a window swinging in the wind. Joey fully opens the window and sees that the place is very old. Meanwhile, Dean, after scaring Sammy in her room and being kicked out by her, explores the place and finds in a dark part of the house some strange paintings. Among them, a girl identical to Abigail, with a woman, both dressed in very old clothes, leaving Dean perplexed. He then goes to the kitchen and while opening the fridge, a door behind him opens on its own. Finding it strange, he goes to check if anyone is there and comes across a deeper part of the house, like a kind of basement, full of old junk. Seeing that there's nothing there besides rats, he decides to go back, but before he can do that, he's knocked down by something and dragged away while screaming for help. Sammy from her room manages to hear the noise and goes to check. She arrives at the strange kitchen and also sees the part that Dean saw, then calls for him, but no one responds. After verifying that there's really no one there, she decides to leave. But upon reaching the kitchen, she is startled to see Dean sitting in the chair. However, when she touches him, his head falls into her hands, leaving Sammy terrified and screaming. Her screams wake up Peter, who was nearby sleeping, and he rushes to see what's happening. Arriving there, he is shocked to see Dean's condition. Sammy tells Peter to immediately call the others. Once there, they all see it and wonder what could have happened for Dean to end up in that state. They suspect it might have been the girl's father who already found out everything and sent one of his hitmen. Rickles tells a story he heard about some hitmen commanded by Abigail's father, saying they were cornered by an FBI group and had no way to escape. But the next day, noticing the absence of the police group, the FBI sent others to the site and there they only found the bodies of the first ones who went, all torn apart as if they had been killed by a wild animal. No one believes this and they decide to check on the girl in the room. Arriving there, they find that Abigail is in the room, but Rickles says he doesn't want to risk anymore and informs that he's out from then on. However, when he reaches the exit, he sees that the door is completely locked with security bars. At this moment, they begin to hear noises throughout the house and soon discover that large metal plates are rising and closing off every possible exit from the place. This leaves everyone perplexed and confused about what might be happening. Joey suggests that it's all a trap, and Rickles rushes to where he was before with his rifle, only to find that the area is now closed off, and his weapon is gone. Joey rushes to the room where Abigail is and asks her if anyone else besides her and Frank has been there with her. The girl confirms that no one else has been there besides them but says that Frank threatened her by telling her something she couldn't tell anyone. Joey manages to get her to talk, and the girl reveals that Frank said he works for her father, also claiming to be named Valdez, one of the assassins from the story Rickles told everyone before. At that moment, Rickles appears at the door and calls for Joey, saying someone took his rifle. Joey then reveals what the girl disclosed, saying that Frank is actually Valdez. But they soon begin to realize that things don't add up, some of Frank's actions not making sense if he were indeed Valdez. However, just to be safe, they decide to devise a plan to find out what's really going on. But as soon as the two separate to put their plan into action, Rickles is suddenly attacked, and upon investigating, Joey sees his face slashed to his neck, causing him to fall lifeless to the ground. Joey then goes to where the others are and, with her gun pointed at Frank, demands to know what he's planning to do with everyone there. Joey says that Frank is actually Valdez and that he killed Dean and now Rickles too. Frank, however, claims that he didn't say anything to Abigail, saying that the girl is trying to turn everyone against each other. Frank suggests that to get to the bottom of this, they should talk to Abigail and get the truth from her. But Joey refuses, saying that no one is going there to hurt her. However, Peter manages to get past and run to the room, but Joey follows closely behind. Upon arriving there, Peter points his gun at Abigail, demanding the truth. But Joey quickly disarms him and takes control. Frank also arrives and points the gun at Joey, and they all find themselves at a standoff. And while everyone is arguing, Abigail simply removes the handcuffs from her wrists and stands on the bed. She positions herself as if to dance ballet and suddenly reveals her different and frightening face. She leaps onto Peter and attempts to bite his neck, but Frank shoots her, knocking her to the ground. Everyone is shocked by this, but to their even greater surprise, Abigail, who appeared dead, rises as if nothing had happened. Sammy and Peter run out of there in desperation, while in shock, Joey and Frank look at the scene in disbelief. The girl then screams and attacks the two, while Joey shoots at her several times. However, her shots have no effect, and they have to leave the room, locking the door behind them, while Abigail lets out terrifying screams inside. Downstairs, they try to comprehend what's happening, concluding that Abigail is a vampire and that she was the one called Valdez, the supposed assassin of her father. Suddenly, the girl screams stop, and everything falls silent, and the group decides they need to find a way to get out of there as quickly as possible. Frank asks Sammy to hack into the house's security system, but she says there's no internet, and even their cell phones are not with them. Seeing that they can't leave and have no other choice, Joey wonders how it would be possible to kill a vampire. They then arm themselves with what they can and believe to be what they need to kill a vampire, then go to the room where Abigail is. However, upon arriving there, they only see an empty room. Suddenly, they hear music coming from the floor above. Upon reaching there, they see Abigail dancing bizarrely with Dean's headless body. They stand paralyzed for a few seconds watching such a scene, but when they decide to attack, Abigail lunges at Sammy and begins to beat her, showing no effect from the garlic Sammy carried, believing it would hurt Abigail. Peter advances and tries to remove the vampire girl from on top of Sammy, but he's soon knocked down and attacked with the crucifix he wore around his neck. Abigail strikes him several times, leaving him bloodied. Frank tries to help and attacks Abigail with a wooden stake, but without success, receiving a brutal counterattack from Abigail, who pierces his leg. The three, realizing they have no chance against the vampire, leave the scene, with Abigail only watching them and smiling as they go, clearly showing she's just playing with them. They arrive where Joey was waiting for them, as she had warned them not to rush into doing that. They say that nothing they thought would work against a vampire actually did. So Joey reminds them that there's something that might work and shows the remaining syringe she had used before on the girl. If they manage to inject it into her, it'll be good night for the vampire. Ensuring that the vampire girl had indeed fallen asleep when she applied the injection before, as she tested her pulse and saw that it was slow and steady. They then have the stupid idea of separating while Joey goes upstairs where Abigail was. However, she only finds a trail of blood in the place. Sammy is checking a lower part of the house when she suddenly startles with some bats and falls into an old swimming pool. She screams in terror when she realizes that it's full of human bodies. At that moment, Peter is surprised by Abigail, who immediately chases after him, making him scream and alert the others. Peter enters a nearby room and locks the door with Abigail on the other side. He speaks through the radio communicator in his ear, saying that everything's okay because he locked the vampire in the hallway. But he's soon alarmed to find that it's of no use, as Abigail destroys the door and enters where he is. He continues to run, with the frenzied vampire close behind him. At one point while running, Peter looks back and is startled by Abigail's appearance, and that's when he's surprised by a door opening in front of him, crashing into it and falling down the staircase below. It's Frank who opened the door and is also startled upon seeing the vampire. Abigail climbs onto the railing and pursues Frank, then pushes him and sends him rolling down the stairs. By this time, Joey and Sammy have also arrived at the scene and hide behind the stairs waiting for an opportunity. Abigail slowly descends the stairs and climbs on top of Frank, mockingly asking him the color of her eyes, just as he had done earlier when threatening her to reveal who her father was. At that moment, Joey emerges from behind the stairs and attempts to inject the vampire, but her attack is blocked, causing the syringe to fall. She runs and tries to retrieve her only chance to stop the creature, but fails to reach where the syringe fell. Sammy, seeing that Abigail is almost killing Frank, grabs her but receives a bite on the arm, causing her to scream in pain and move away. Abigail, at that moment, demonstrates another of her abilities and, grabbing Frank's leg, begins to levitate. It's at that moment that Peter jumps from the staircase onto Abigail. Being very strong, he manages to hold the vampire girl for a few seconds, but he tells Joey to hurry as he's no longer able to. Finally, fortunately, Joey manages to retrieve the syringe and quickly injects Abigail. The tranquilizer quickly takes effect and weakens Abigail, who screams in anger, saying that she'll kill them all, rip off their heads, and then gorge on their blood. Shortly after, the girl falls asleep, leaving everyone relieved. Sammy then sees the bite on her arm and wonders what will happen to her, but no one can say, as they have no idea. A few moments later, Abigail wakes up, but now she's trapped behind the metal bars of an elevator in the house. The girl tries to deceive everyone with fake tears, asking to be released, but Joey tells her to cut the act, saying that she's very good at pretending to be a little girl. Abigail just laughs and thanks her, saying she has centuries of experience. Joey tries to negotiate with the vampire, saying that if she tells them how to get out of there, they'll release her. At that moment, Sammy shouts at Abigail, asking what will happen to her since she was bitten, wondering if she'll also turn into a vampire. Abigail smiles, saying maybe yes, leaving Sammy desperate. Frank tries to apologize to the vampire, saying he didn't know what she was when they kidnapped her, but then Abigail reveals what's really going on there. She tells them that she actually brought them there deliberately and that Lambert works for her, that there was never any ransom money. She then also reveals Sammy's true name, Jessica Herney, saying she started her career embezzling money from her rich parents' account and eventually from other powerful people. She continues and talks about the past mistakes of each of the members, eventually ending up with Joey, who is actually named Ana Lucia Cruz, a former military medic who was discharged from service for making a mistake in an important surgery, as she was under the influence of drugs. Joey tries to argue against the vampire as well, but she just says she likes to play with her food, saying that they are just like all the others she brought to devour over the years. She then proposes that if they release her, she'll let 2 of them live. As time passes, she decreases the offer and says she'll only leave 1 alive, whoever releases her now. Peter, afraid, then points his gun at his accomplices, but Frank says the girl is just lying. Peter still tries to open the metal cage anyway, but gets a grazing shot from Joey and hands over the gun, giving up on doing that. She then takes him to another place to treat his wound with Sammy's help while Frank stays to watch Abigail. The girl tries to persuade Frank to let her go, promising to leave his blood and organs with him. But Frank insists that she first tell them how to get out of that house, to which she tries to make a deal by saying that as soon as she tells them how to get out, he'll have to let her go. Frank agrees, and she tells him that the way out is in the old library through a secret door next to the bookshelf on the right wall. Frank then starts to leave when Abigail reminds him to keep his part of the deal. Frank approaches the cage and mocks her, asking how she is still so naive at her age. At that moment, she exits laughing and dancing bizarrely towards Frank lying on the ground. At that moment, Joey arrives and seeing Abigail close to killing him, gets the idea to break the wooden boards of a nearby window, where the sunlight outside enters and instantly explodes Abigail's arm. Abigail screams in pain and retreats to the shadow, watching her arm damaged by the sun, but regenerating. Joey then lifts Frank and they both run away, while Abigail screams in hatred and pain at seeing them fleeing. They reach the library and position themselves in the sunlight coming through the window Joey had opened before. Sammy is afraid of burning in the sun and tests it with just her finger, but she's relieved to see that the sunlight doesn't affect her. Frank searches for the secret exit that Abigail had told him about before but is frustrated to find out it was just the vampire's lie. Joey then says that Abigail is healing and they need to find a way to get out of there. She then checks a wall that seems hollow and starts to break it. But after a while, with everyone exhausted from the terrible night, she gives up, seeing that it's not yielding results. Seeing that they need to get out of there before nightfall again, Sammy suggests turning off the power in the house so that somehow they can reverse the locks on the metal plates on the doors and windows. They split into 2 groups. Sammy goes with Peter and Joey with Frank. Through the radio communicator, Joey warns them to stay alert because Abigail is toying with them. While still looking for something, Peter encourages Sammy to continue, saying they managed to escape from that place. However, as Peter looks around, Sammy feels strange and sees her arm wound heal instantly. She then begins to hear whispers from Abigail in her head, saying that Sammy now belongs to her. That's when Sammy drastically changes her expression and disappears from Peter's presence for a moment. He looks around trying to see her when suddenly he's surprised by her in the dark beside him and she attacks him, biting and tearing a piece of his neck. Then under Abigail's control, Sammy devours Peter. Sammy then starts calling for the others for help, saying that Abigail is there. But while Joey and Frank head towards her, Sammy, under Abigail's control, dances ballet, being affected by the little sunlight present in the room. She hears Joey arriving with Frank and tries to pretend to cry for Peter. However, Joey stands still away from her, sensing something strange. So when Sammy stands up, Joey tells Frank to run because she realized that Sammy is now a vampire. They run back to the library and stand in the sunlight, and then Sammy also arrives. Sammy starts talking as if she were Abigail and then attacks the two of them. But quickly, Joey grabs a silver tray from the floor and reflects the sunlight directly onto Sammy, instantly vaporizing her. At that moment, a secret door opens beside them, and even though they know it's a trap, they decide to enter it, having nothing else to do but try something there because night is approaching again, and they won't have a chance. They walk through a secret corridor, while they begin to hear recorded voices of phrases they said before. When they reach the end, they discover that monitors are recording everything, and it's Lambert who is monitoring, who also turns out to be a vampire. Lambert says he wants to propose a deal, but Joey says they won't make any deal. Lambert grabs her by the neck and says he was talking to Frank. He reveals that he was turned by Abigail about 2 years ago for helping Frank with something in New York. And his entire family was threatened by her if he didn't work for her, bringing his father's enemies to serve as food. Lambert then proposes that he help Frank kill Abigail so that he can survive, but Frank will also need to be transformed for that. However, Frank refuses to be another puppet of Abigail like he was with Sammy, but Lambert assures him that he won't be like that because he will be like him and will have total autonomy. He also says that he has already called Abigail's father to that place and together they can kill Abigail and her father to take over everything afterward. Without much thought, Frank accepts, and then after knocking out Joey, Lambert kills him and spills some of his own blood into Frank's mouth to accelerate the transformation. Frank begins to change and expels a lot of blood from his body, when finally he transforms. Joey wakes up and sees the whole scene in panic. Seeing her awake, Lambert tells Frank that he has his first victim, but as soon as he turns his back on Frank, Frank strikes him with a wooden stake directly in the chest, making him explode into 1,000 pieces, saying that was for his attack against him. Frank then, now also a monster, orders Joey to run so he can chase her. But just then, Abigail arrives behind them, amazed that they found Lambert. The girl laughs, asking if he tried to convince him to join forces to kill her before Frank himself eliminated him. She then says that the game is over there and goes after Frank without knowing that he is transformed. As she jumps on him, she is surprised and gets bitten on the neck by Frank. Taking advantage of this, Joey quickly presses the release button for the doors and windows of the house. She grabs her cell phone that was in a bag on the table and staggers out of the room. However, when she reaches the end of the hallway, she sees that the door leading to the library is now locked with a chain. At that moment, Frank apparently manages to eliminate Abigail and leaves her lying on the ground as dead. Joey, seeing that she can't escape, calls her son and leaves a message on the answering machine, saying that she loves him very much and always has. At that moment, Frank appears and walks slowly towards her. Joey then tries to attack him with the wooden stake, but is pushed, and with force, the door that was locked opens. Lying on the ground, Joey says she will kill Frank, but he throws her up with great force. He climbs to where she is and plays with her, throwing her against the wall as she tries to defend herself. But her efforts are futile, and she is thrown to the ground again. Frank grabs her by the neck and hangs her on the edge of the balcony, promising that after killing her, he will go after her son. He then lets her go to her death, but before Joey reaches the ground, Abigail appears again and saves her. She asks to join forces with her because alone she cannot defeat Frank. In exchange, she will let her leave the house alive to see her son again. Frank arrives where they are, and then Abigail advances towards him. With the distraction, Joey manages to hit him with an iron bar and trap him with it. Immediately, Abigail jumps on him, and unable to bite him, she punches him, then lands a double kick, knocking them both down. Abigail quickly gets up and with her ballet steps, lands a kick to Frank's face. However, he counterattacks and violently throws her against the ground. Joey tries again to strike him with the iron bar, but is stopped and pierced back below the shoulder. Abigail quickly regenerates from her wounds and gets up. Frank leaves Joey trapped on one of the wooden columns of the library and goes to face Abigail again. Abigail, however, with her ballet steps, manages to land blows on Frank, who falls to the ground. She tries to deliver another blow by jumping from the stairs, but being weak, she is grabbed and Frank bites her neck again to drain her completely. Frank leaves her lying on the ground and goes to Joey, then he bites her because he plans to control her so she can go after her son herself after becoming a vampire. As her first mission, he orders her to stand up and impale Abigail with the wooden stake. However, as she walks towards Abigail as if she were under Frank's control, we notice that Joey's eyes haven't changed color like everyone else's who transform. She then shows she isn't under his control because she didn't turn, and she attacks him. But she is again blocked and thrown away. However, this gives Abigail a chance to grab him from behind and try to bite him. Again, Abigail is thrown to the ground, and while Frank holds her, Joey blocks him from behind with the iron bar holding his mouth shut. Frank falls to the ground, and then Abigail, with the wooden stake, tries to pierce him in the chest. Joey comes to help, and together they finally manage to finish him off. Abigail thanks her, and Joey wonders why she hasn't transformed yet, but Abigail says that since Frank was killed, the transformation won't happen to Joey. Joey then says she must leave now, and Abigail doesn't stop her, as promised. However, before she can leave, the girl's father appears, scaring Joey, who falls to the ground. Laser, as he is known nowadays, says that this is just one of the countless names he has had over the years. He growls to scare Joey, and Abigail tells him to stop it, saying that Joey saved her. But Laser doesn't listen and lets out a terrifying scream against her. But Abigail doesn't intimidate herself and convinces him to let Joey go. He then says that she must hurry because dinner time is approaching. Abigail says goodbye to Joey and says she'll see her around. Joey finally manages to leave that frightening place of death and enters her van, relieved she drives away from there.